This was a monumental event for the Concorde to come to the West Coast. This is Las Vegas, and there's thousands of people there just to see this aircraft land and take off. And we got a charter on it from Las Vegas to Paris, France. What a trip that was. The Concorde has a delta wing design, so they have to come in at a very steep angle, and you can see the nose dropping down so that the pilots can see the runway as they come in with those big, huge afterburners burning away. The thing is really loud. The plane has an officer that their whole job is just to trim the aircraft by pumping fuel from one part of the plane to the next. I mean, look at the thing settle down on this airstrip. Wow, what an aircraft. And this thing is not meant to fly subsonic. We're stopping in New York City to fuel up, but they can't fly supersonic across the US. They have to fly maybe just under Mach 1, I believe. And it's pretty bumpy. This aircraft's coming from Reno, where the governor of Nevada was on board with a bunch of other people. And from my understanding, it was very, very rough because the weather is very windy and people got sick after drinking their Dom Pignon on the way from Reno to Las Vegas. But wow, what an aircraft that is. Check out the pyramid behind there, still building it. Look at this aircraft. I'm sure everybody in the whole airport's checking this thing out. The pilots are probably telling the passengers on board, look out your window, there's the Concorde. Look at this turn, look at those delta wings dropping on the sides, and it's got 4 Rolls-Royce engines in the back producing 36,000 pounds of thrust each. And at takeoff, it produces 152,000 pounds of thrust with the afterburners burning away. That must be a sight to see at night. Here it comes in. Wow. Look at that nose drop down. I think they're going to raise it here in a second. What it looks like when it's at Supersonic. There you can see it's closing up. Those portholes on the side are like only 6 inches in diameter and 5 inches deep. It's like looking through a submarine porthole. And what's amazing about this aircraft is that it gets so hot, the fuselage, that it expands by 10 inches when it's at supersonic speeds. I think that's the governor. He's going, it was great, but I threw up on my wife. All the airport officials checking out those Rolls-Royce engines. As I said earlier, this was a historic event here in Las Vegas. I mean, look at the thousands of people lined up along the runway. I mean, nowadays they would never let anybody get that close to these aircraft. But anyway, we had bulkhead seats. We were one of the first to book this flight, so I could actually see the Mach meter from our seats, which you'll see later on in this video. Everything at this airport stopped to watch the Concorde take off. We're taking off here about 250 miles per hour. Most aircraft takes off at about 173. Anyway, it's pretty loud in the cabin, as you can imagine, with those afterburners cut in. So the angle's pretty steep as we take off. But there's 1993 Las Vegas in the background, heading to New York City. Here's the Mach meter I was talking about. We're still climbing out. You know, I'm holding a big camera. Video cameras back in those days were pretty big. Anyway, this cabin is really small. It's about the size of a regional jet today. And here's our menu. They start serving you Dom Pignon as soon as you take off. And they really chill down the cabin, like it's chilly in there. I mean, people were wanting blankets. because it gets so hot by the end of the flight that you have to, they give you these little aerosol water sprayers to cool yourself down. You can feel the heat radiating in off the windows by the time you're starting descent in, down to Paris. Taken off from New York and on the way to Paris, just about ready to make Mach 1, faster than the speed of sound here. I mean, they actually have the afterburners. They have to turn on the afterburners on those Rolls-Royce engines to push through the sound barrier, and they do it switching on one at a time so that they don't spill everybody's drink. So you really don't feel it. But there we are going 767 miles per hour. Back in those days, they had the door open to the cockpit. You could actually go in there and talk to the officers and the pilot while they're flying. Just unbelievable. And we were flying at 60,000 feet. There's no turbulence whatsoever at this altitude. It was less than 3-hour trip from New York to Paris. And this was a one-way trip on the Concorde. On the way back, they booked us business class. But it was quite a adventure. I mean, I think about it all the time. Here's a view of the cabin here, stewardesses back in those days. It's pretty small fuselage in there. I almost hit my head when I walked down there. Landed in Paris.